Hi, my name is Barend Engelbrecht. I'm an educational psychologist, and today I'd like to talk to you about important considerations for a parent intake interview. When you are working within a school or nonprofit organization setting or in private practice, you will need to see the parents before you see a child. It is a very important aspect to our process, whether these interventions are for an assessment or for therapy or learner support. Where possible, we want to see the parents in person, and that is also an important way of building a relationship and getting them involved in the intervention process. The first and important part to a parent intake interview is to ensure that our ethical and administrative matters are sorted. And that is something we want to do at the start of our session. We, in many cases, will not see the parents again at the school or at the organization we are working with. It's very difficult to get them there. So we want to take that opportunity when they are there to ensure that all our administrative tasks and things, ethical matters are covered. One of the most important ones is obviously our informed consent that we need from both parents. In various matters, we will have a video about ethical considerations and forms, but it's important that we get the consent of parents. And many times we find that parents, even though we've emailed them the forms before the time to fill in, they do not have the capacity to print them or are too busy to fill in those forms before they bring them back to us. And it's a good idea to have print out copies of our consent and intake forms at our practice so we can give them to our parents who haven't filled them in or forgotten them at home, because without consent we cannot move forward. This is an important opportunity to clarify what consent is, the limitations of consent, and we need to do this in a respectful manner that that the parents understand that we, in a therapeutic space, are keeping our clients' information confidential. Why? Because it's important for our trust relationship. We cannot have a relationship where we can explore the internal world of our client if there's no trust, if the client is concerned about the consequences of what they are saying, getting out to their parents and so forth. And they need to understand that. And that what we can share with that is, especially our parents who are very concerned about information being shared to us that they need to know, is that when there are things that are not in the limits of our confidentiality where we have to report, but we do feel is important, we do take the responsibility to encourage our clients to share that information with themselves, facilitate perhaps that process, or we get their permission that we can communicate certain important information, whether it is to a teacher or to parents or a coach and so forth, and that really will help them in their process. We want to ensure that we have our parents and clients' contact details, emails, and so forth, and we want to double check our forms that we have that information at hand. If there are any other additional forms, whether there is an administrative cost to the therapy or to the assessment, many non-profit organizations or schools where you'll be working as a student psychologist or an intern, or in full private practice, have at least many times administrative cost to cover therapy materials, and also is used as a small cost to ensure the commitment of clients. When clients pay for something, they are typically more committed to the process and to see it through. So a very important part of our intake interview is to build a trusting relationship with the parents. When we see them from the first moment, we want to be warm, we want to be welcoming, we want to be respectful and not non-judgmental to them and their opinions. And we want to say, one of the first things I always say is thank you for your time, for putting time aside, coming to the school so that we can have this important conversation. It's very important that we get the message across to the parents that we want to work with them to helping their child. We are in a very unique and privileged position that we are not a school teacher or a part of a disciplinary process. We are supposed to be an objective outside third party that can help their child, and we are there for the best interest of their child. So we are actually working with our parents, and parents typically when they know that we are separate and outside our limits of confidentiality and the purpose of how we're working, they give us more of their trust and participate better, knowing that we're not necessarily part of the school system where many parents feel apprehensive to share information to the school regarding challenges of their child. So we want to ensure that they know we are working with them and not against them. It's important that you build some form of a cooperative relationship within that session. Why? Because when we look at the family systems approach and the bioecological lens, no client, no child lives in isolation. And a big impact of how our clients' lives is the context where they are, where they live, and the impact of parents on them. So that is something we always need to remember, is that there are things that we can, interventions we can put in place on different levels of the bioecological systems approach, and our household parents towards their children in a school setting, one-on-one with our client, but also our client within their peers. There are various levels that we can put interventions, and that increases the chance of us being successful in making a positive change in our client's life. We want to observe our parents, and we want to observe how they speak. For me, an important part of building that relationship, as with any of our clients, is that building a rapport with our clients, one of an accepting and understanding way of listening to them. I want to know when they come in, what are their challenges, what would they like to see throughout the process, and how can we create an improvement and an intervention, and what would that look like to them. It's important to remember that we are going to set goals with our client, with our parents, and possibly from a school's point of view, and try and see what are all the stakeholders, how do they perceive the child and their context, and we're going to try and determine through that process with our client what are the goals for our therapy and our intervention, and how to effectively get there. The intake interview process is one of gathering information. When possible, when we have the intake form completed already with background information, we want to go through that before the time, so we have a good idea of the history of the child, and if there are certain questions or clarifications we need, we can communicate that. At times, parents do not complete that form, and we want to take a bit of time in our intake meeting to get some of that important information of our child. I love to set up a genogram in the session with the parents. For me, it's a fantastic tool to get their cooperation, their buy-in, and people actually love to share about their family. I experience how their filters come off when each parent is talking about themselves and their parents and how they grew up and so forth, and it can lead to quite some insightful information. There's a separate video on genograms and how to do that, to see the family structure and the dynamics that definitely give us insight into the child's life. We want to know what parents see as their child's strengths and their challenges. And we want to know about the developmental milestones and history, and important things that we want to know that aren't necessarily always clear on forms. Is there any form of diagnosis? Has there been any interventions put in place before, therapies, eye tests, and so forth, and medication? That's quite a big one. We want to know if a child is currently on medication or not, and be open to even ask parents, are you on, if I may ask, are you on any medication? Because that can sometimes show us a bit of the internal world of parents. You'll be surprised many times to find that mom or dad are on antidepressants or are taking medication for bipolar or for ADHD, and that gives us immediately insight into the dynamics at home, and possible genetic diagnosis and disorders that might be with the child. Like I mentioned earlier, it's important that we clarify the goals and the aims. And once again, with many of these things, we want to open the floor first for our parents to say what they think are the challenges that their child is experiencing and what they would like to see through the process. And many times we are very vague, and parents and teachers are very vague about, no, we need to help this child to concentrate better. But what does that look like? What would be an example or a sign or a symptom be of us actually getting to our goals, and getting more practical things in place? For example, at home, we might want to see that our child is able to sleep in their own bed, have less nightmares, and parents are able to support them better with homework or something like that. We want to clarify that. We want to, obviously, before we set any goals out, we want to clarify what is our role with the client and the parents. Are we going to offer therapy? Is this an assessment, just a parent consultation, or a referral to someone else? And we want to be clear on those things. And that is part of the purpose of the meeting. We want our parents to feel informed about the process. So that's why it's an important aspect to explain the process, what we're going to follow. We want to explain, for example, in a school setting, how will we work? For example, typically in a school setting, we will say something that, we have set out 6 to 8 sessions. It will be once a week for an hour long. It will be during the school day. We will try not to take your child out of an important lesson such as maths or English, or at certain times we have no control of when we can take them out, but when we have a gap, we will take them out and communicate with the teacher that they catch up on work, whatever our process is. And we need to clarify to the parents when we will communicate and how we will communicate with them again. My advice is specifically a structure working with therapy with kids in a school setting, is that we want to do in total 6 to 8 sessions that fits weekly, that fits in a term. Halfway through, we want to give some form of feedback to parents. That it is sufficient that it's over email, except if there's very pressing matters or some form of interventions that we have found out through the first few sessions that we want to communicate with parents so that they can apply those things at home. So halfway through, we want to give them some form of feedback, either on email, over phone, or in person. And at the end of our 8 sessions, 6 to 8 sessions, when we've concluded our therapy, we will want to give feedback again about the process and, terminate appropriately. So as I said about the feedback and communication is very important. The way we're going to communicate with them is very important. And although we want an open channel for communication with parents, we do want healthy boundaries that parents and clients do not access us at inappropriate times or personal numbers. My advice is to provide rather an email address where one can communicate and ensure that one always replies within 24 hours. With any cell phone or many cell phones have a dual SIM. My advice to most therapists is get a second SIM card and a second number. Set up WhatsApp Business on your phone with that secondary number. And if you need to share a number with your clients, share that business number and limit your interaction and answering of calls and messages within reasonable office hours or your hours available to work with. And parents can perhaps contact you on that to keep it professional and to keep your personal life separate to your work life. It is important throughout this whole process for any intervention to really work with children is we want to create change at home as well. So that's why the parental guidance and involvement is very important. We want to, after we've heard a bit of the challenges, the strengths and the weaknesses, or the strengths and challenges of the client, we want to give advice, sound advice, that parents can apply at home. Things that I typically say specifically is in many times children require, they're actually in need of attention. So things I would say, for example, is it's important that you put time aside to spend time with your child, quality over quantity of time. And even though you might be giving your child time and attention, perhaps it's not perceived exactly that way by your child. And it is maybe if you just change a bit of your intention and how you spend time with your child, that changes the perception of how the child feels that they are getting attention from their parent or not. That's just one of my examples. But we want to give them practical strategies that they can use at home. We sometimes need to remind parents of the age of their child, what stage of development their child is in, what can we realistically expect from children and what not. Some parents overparent and are overbearing, and some parents aren't there at all. And we want to help people find the balance. With the overbearing parents, we want to encourage more autonomy in their children, building independence gradually. And with parents that we find are not very involved, we want to encourage them to find ways of being more involved and present in their children's lives. Just as an example, and depending on the situation that one might find oneself in, refer them to resources that they can read up. And if you don't have something exactly there and then to advise, it is okay. Communicate with the parent that there is something you're going to share with them, and you'll share with them over an email within the next week or so. And then that gives you time to do a bit of research and advise appropriate things if you feel that is necessary. I hope you find these essential considerations for your intake interview with parents as helpful, and it helps you to think a little bit about how you need and what aspects you need to address with parents in the session. Do not be scared of parents, but really use them as part of the process. You'll find a video of me explaining a genogram that one can use in a session. That is a really useful tool to help gain and access information and insight into the client and the family life.